It was just past midnight when the engines of the Iron Hearts Motorcycle Club echoed down a quiet country road in Tennessee. The men had been riding for hours, chasing the cool night air and the open highway. But as they passed through a lonely stretch lined with pine trees, a faint sound stopped them. A cry, distant but desperate, cutting through the wind. At first, they thought it was an animal. But when it came again, trembling, human, and full of fear, every biker froze. They didn't know it then, but that single cry for help would lead them into a night they'd never forget and remind them all what it truly means to be human. Stay with me till the end, because this story will touch your heart in ways you won't expect. And before we begin, make sure to subscribe for more powerful, true life stories that restore faith in humanity. And tell me at the end where in the country you're watching from. The Iron Hearts weren't a typical motorcycle club. They didn't care about fame or flash. Their motto was simple: ride hard, help harder. Their leader, Jake Morgan, was a man who had lived through more storms than most. A former firefighter, he'd retired early after losing his partner in a house fire. Riding was his therapy, and helping others was how he honored the friend he lost. That night, the club, 8 riders strong, was returning from a charity run for homeless veterans. The air was cool, the sky heavy with clouds, and the moonlight barely cut through the mist rolling across the Tennessee hills. As the group neared an old bridge, something strange pierced the hum of their engines, a cry. It was faint, but unmistakable, a woman's voice. "Did you hear that?" Jake asked, cutting his engine. The others stopped too, the night suddenly eerily quiet. Then it came again. "Somebody, please help." The men exchanged looks. The road was empty, surrounded by woods and steep slopes leading down to a river below. Without a word, Jake grabbed his flashlight and motioned for the others to follow. "Split up. Check both sides of the bridge." Jake's boots hit the gravel as he moved toward the railing. The air smelled of wet pine and motor oil. When he shined his light down the slope, his stomach dropped. A small car had veered off the road and was half submerged in the muddy ditch below. "Over here!" he yelled. The other bikers rushed over, sliding down the hill. Inside the car, through the cracked windshield, they saw a woman trapped behind the steering wheel. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she tried to push the door open. "Please help me," she cried. Jake didn't hesitate. He waded through the mud, tugged on the handle, but it was jammed. "Hang on, ma'am. We got you." With the help of 2 bikers, they pried open the back door and pulled her out. She was shaking uncontrollably, soaked and bruised. "My baby," she gasped. "My baby's in the car seat, in the back." Jake's heart froze. He turned to look, and sure enough, in the faint glow of his flashlight, he saw a small child, barely 2 years old, strapped in a car seat, unconscious but breathing. He lunged forward, unbuckled the straps, and carefully lifted the child into his arms. The little girl was cold as ice but still alive. "She's breathing," he said softly. "She's gonna be okay." They carried the woman and her child up the hill to the road, wrapping them in biker jackets to keep them warm. One of the bikers, Marcus, called 911. The woman sobbed, clutching her daughter. "I thought no one would find us," she said between tears. "The car slid off the road hours ago. My phone died. I screamed until my voice went hoarse." Jake looked at her, his voice steady but gentle. "You're safe now. We got you." As they waited for the ambulance, rain began to fall, light at first, then harder. The bikers formed a circle around the woman and her child, their leather jackets shielding them from the downpour. To any passerby, it would have looked like an unlikely sight. A group of rugged bikers huddled together in the rain, protecting a mother and her baby. But for Jake and his crew, it was instinct. They didn't ride for glory, they rode for moments like this. The ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. The paramedics rushed the woman and her child inside, checking vitals and giving them oxygen. Before she left, the woman grabbed Jake's hand. "You saved my baby," she whispered. "I'll never forget you." Jake smiled. "Just promise me one thing," he said. "When you're back on your feet, pay it forward. Help someone else who needs it." She nodded through tears as the ambulance doors closed. The bikers stood in the rain long after the sirens faded. No one spoke for a while. The night felt heavy, but also peaceful, as if the world had paused just to remind them what kindness could look like. Marcus finally broke the silence. "You think they'll be okay?" Jake nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think they will." A few days later, the Iron Hearts were back at their clubhouse, a converted old gas station filled with chrome parts and memories. They were tuning their bikes when a white van pulled up. Out stepped the same woman, this time smiling, holding her little girl in her arms. Jake looked up, stunned. "Well, I'll be damned." She walked over, her eyes full of gratitude. "I wanted to see you all again, to say thank you properly." She handed Jake a small envelope. Inside was a photo, her and her daughter smiling together at the hospital. On the back, she'd written, "Because of you, she gets to grow up." The room went silent. Jake swallowed hard, his rough exterior breaking just a little. "You didn't have to come all this way," he said. "I did," she replied softly. "You showed me there's still good in this world. I want my daughter to grow up knowing that." Too, as she left, one of the bikers' tank turned to Jake. "You ever think about how close we were to missing that cry?" Jake looked out toward the open road, where the sun was setting behind the trees.
"Yeah,"
he said quietly, "but maybe we were meant to hear it." That night, Jake sat alone on the porch, watching the stars return. The world around him was silent, the kind of silence that hums with meaning. He thought about all the times he'd questioned his purpose since leaving the fire department. About the nights he'd ridden just to outrun the emptiness. And then he thought about that cry in the dark, how it had led them to a mother, a child, and a miracle. Sometimes, he realized, you don't have to save the whole world. Sometimes, saving just one life is enough. He pulled out the photo again, tracing the smiling faces with his thumb. "We heard you," he whispered, "and we always will." Weeks later, a local newspaper ran the story. Bikers save mother and child in midnight rescue. The town that once viewed them as rough outlaws now saw them as heroes. Donations poured into the Iron Hearts charity fund, and people began stopping by the clubhouse, not out of fear, but to shake their hands. Jake didn't care about the attention. What mattered was that somewhere out there, a little girl was alive, and a mother could tuck her in every night. The road stretched on, endless and uncertain, but Jake knew one thing for sure. If another cry for help ever echoed through the night, the Iron Hearts would be there. Because that's what real strength looks like. It's not in the roar of the engine, it's in the quiet act of stopping when someone needs you most. Sometimes, help doesn't come from where you expect it. That night, the woman didn't know who would hear her cry. But fate sent her a group of men who lived by one simple rule: never ride past someone in need. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful true stories that remind us all what humanity still means. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching this video? Because no matter where you are, kindness can always find its way in the dark.